Treasures, yes. Yes, it's amazing the conversations that have taken place over the years and the work that each individual gets to do in the process. And one of the things that's been sort of banging around in my head is we listen, and so often people accept the conversation as the experience rather than following the tools or utilizing the tools in order to have their own experience. And this work of awakening to being, this work of standing as a human being, it's not enough to follow somebody else who's had an experience and go, oh, wow, we'll admire their experience and ride on their coattails. The objective is to have a personal experience, personally experienced. And I was realizing that as yesterday I went back, I'm still working on the quantum still point definition and realizing the number of experiences over the years that it's taken to arrive at this point, to be able to have this conversation every day. And somebody could listen to all those words and it'd be kind of like, you know, if you've never tasted chocolate, I can describe the taste of chocolate in 100 different languages. Let's imagine I could speak 100 languages, but you still haven't tasted chocolate. And we live in a culture that is so profoundly expert at knocking the awareness of being out of us with unresolved generational patterns and cultural patterns of hostility or fear, that the modeling of the experience of living from being is rare to find. The conversation about the experience of living as a human being, as the presence of love, is a rare one, and the conversation is still not the experience. And so as we describe the tools that we're talking about, we're inviting the use of the tools rather than the theory behind the tools, which, knowing all the theory behind the tools, still is not the experience. And realizing that everything that I'm doing in that 3-day intensive, 3 to 5 day intensive, is really about opening the space for someone to, for each individual to really directly have the experience of literally being out of your mind. You know, the mind is not where the secrets are held. And so we're looking to literally step beyond the mind, step into the state of being, and then choose to live from that state, quite literally, for the rest of eternity. So that's the most current thought on my mind. I don't know if it might bring something up for anybody, but if so, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, if you call that number, you'll be listening on your phone. And then if you push 1, that'll raise a hand in the control panel. Gene will introduce you by your area code. We'll have a conversation. So how can we support you? What's on your mind? Do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up, sweetie, or anything happening in the chat room? I think your mute button's on, sweetie. I can hear you speaking through the wall, but you're not coming through the phone. There you go.
Okay, there we go. So, yes, Susan's on 610. You're on the air.
Hey, hi, guys.
Well,
congratulations on all those videos you put up.
Isn't that awesome?
It is. It's amazing. What an achievement. What an amazing thing. So, congratulations on that. I have a little announcement, and that is that on Wednesday, August 7th, I think it is, Michael Bennett will be reporting into Cathedral Towers in Jacksonville, Florida, to move into his new place. Yeah, he has agreed to do it. I know, and Jonathan's going to drive him down, and they're trying to figure out how to do it in the most economical way without too much wear and tear. And anyway, it's just I can't quite believe it's actually happening, but his applications have been approved, and they have a space, and they're taking him. So that's
your dedication in supporting him has been awesome, and the fact that he's going to a place where he's going to have care and support, and your daughter's there with a commitment to support him, I think that's just fabulous.
It is. It's amazing. So we have a lot going on around here. Jonathan put in his resignation from being a medical doctor 2 days ago. He's had two or three rather intense days of processing and feeling pretty badly about himself because he hasn't got a real plan, partly because his boat was struck by lightning, and so his plan to go sailing has been taken away. It's up on the ground and being inspected, not even repaired yet. It's going to take weeks. So his plans changed. He's being good, and his son, Charlie, has joined, for the moment, a fundamentalist Christian church because they offer him a kind of certainty, and his anxiety, his OCD anxiety, has been very, very painful to him. And he tells me, he's been reading about it, and there's no cure for it. He tells me that, and I tell him there is always a cure. Don't listen to that stuff. But one thing they do is, I listened to a sermon given by the pastor there, a very articulate, bright man who takes the Bible literally. And, that's complicated because a lot of the things in the Bible contradict themselves. But it's been quite an adventure having dialogues with Charles where I can just applaud him on his excitement about it and how much he's growing, and I love his dedication. And yet, there are a lot of things like he doesn't want to talk to the priest in our church who is married to a man. Wonderful guy, artistic and articulate and bright and just the best. But Charlie doesn't want to talk with him because he doesn't agree with his lifestyle. So we're a lot of interesting stuff going around here. Thanks for listening. That's just a report. I know it's not asking you a question, although any help on OCD, if you know much about it, there is an actually different, the brain looks different. People who have OCD, the brain is different in a way that I don't understand, and I wonder if you understand any of that.
Well, my take would be that if one is moving in the direction of destructive behavior due to OCD, then yes, then they have a problem. But if one takes charge of their own mind, i.e. their goals, then it becomes OCD, an obsessive compulsive blessing. And they can make constructive use of those compulsions all the while weakening the compulsivity by knowing. It's like, I was thinking today, is, again, I've been writing about this quantum still point, and basically what we're doing is getting people to understand how their instrument works. Let's imagine that I'm handed a car and I don't know anything about cars, and gee, if I'm a mechanic, I know that if it's missing, I need a new spark plug. But if I don't know there's such a thing as a spark plug, how can I fix it? How can I put a new spark plug in it if I have no knowledge of it? And the knowledge of the brain, sadly, is so horribly lacking in this culture, even by brain specialists, because we're not dealing with the brain, we're dealing with the mind. And yes, whatever content is in a particular instrument, the instrument's going to change according to that content. Yes, so every brain is going to look different. And if you understand that the way you change a cylinder in a car, or a spark plug in a car, is you need a certain set of tools, and you need how to apply those tools, and you don't just dig out the wrenches and turn the car off while the engine's steaming hot and put your hands in there, because you'll get burned. You go, oh no, we don't fix those things because they're dangerous. If you don't have a clue how it works, then yes, it's difficult. And my highest thought would be that the fact that he's gotten the relief that you've shared with us from entering the church is awesome. Just help him keep building brain cells for how his instrument works and what the tools are, and he'll be absolutely fine.
That's great. That's great. My son has gotten very anxious about this, and I tell him, look at me. I was a fundamentalist for a whole year, and my parents just did the right thing. They just hung out. They were happy for me. They didn't make negative comments. They just let me go through it. So I tell my son to do the same. But I love your idea of OCB, that this is an opportunity. How gorgeous is that? That's great.
Well, Jeannie, when I first met her, would tell me about being OCD, and then every once in a while she mentions it. And when she's going OCD in the self-proclaimed, self-diagnosed, and when she's going in the direction of OCD, I would just give her a gentle reminder. She cancels the goal and lets go of it. And it's totally, completely, you've acknowledged and we've all observed how if it needs to get done, Jeannie's going to get it done. I know. And she's turned it totally into a blessing. And now sometimes, like the other day, she went out into the garden and she got caught up in it, and it's like I got her agreement coming out of the garden, having overwhelmed herself. Sweetie, you've got to take care of yourself. You've got to notice when, in those kind of temperatures, you can harm yourself. So just pay attention and cancel the goal and come back in the house and cool off. So managing the mind is, to me, this man Yeshua, he was describing OCD when he says, "Sufficient for the day are the evils thereof." Conversation we've had several times. When you're overloaded with goals, it's go, 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 and it's overwhelmed, and not always in a positive direction. So you redirect the mind by knowing how the device works, and it turns into a blessing. Any thoughts for you on that, Jeannie, as we talk about you?
No, it's absolutely true. It's like, if I know that there is a task that needs to be done, it actually pulls me in two directions to let it go.
Well, Jeannie,
it's something outside of you pulls you in two directions, honey?
My mind.
The
go punch him in the nose,
hold.
Jeannie.
Yeah. Cancel that thought.
Yeah, cancel that thought.
Right. So, Jeannie,
you don't want to set that kind of a goal for her.
Yes, ma'am.
My child, I just wanted to ask you, Michael said you've you feel overwhelmed. Is that anxiety, or is it just because Charlie suffers from tremendous anxiety about this? It just painful.
It just takes practice to, let it go, and whether it's like at the garden, the job was incomplete. It's still incomplete, and I'd love to go out there and finish it, but I promised Michael I wouldn't. So
that's good. Well, you're a terrific example.
Yeah, over the years, there have been several times where I literally have taken her hands, led her to a bathtub of water, and said, just soak, just take care of yourself. Recognizing when that kicks in and it's becoming destructive, canceling the goals that drive the mind, because, OCD is totally, completely based in goals. Now, will the structure of the mind change if one has been overloading for years and years and years? Yeah, and it's going to take time, and unwinding that by recognizing that every behavior prompt is based in a goal. My behavior prompts are, quote unquote, driving me to anxiety, then I need to start to cancel the drivers and process what's underneath it.
Yeah.
And it will change.
This is so helpful. This is going to sound really funny, but we're having a family reunion this weekend, and we're all driving up to Salem, Connecticut. Charlie does not want to go. Why? Because he's afraid he won't be able to smile. This has been an issue. People will expect him, he thinks, to smile, and he won't be able to smile. He has a perfectly sweet look on his face, but he just can't seem to stretch out his mouth wide when he thinks it's required. So he has this goal to smile when it's supposed to be the thing to do. That's so cool. I'll just say to give up the goal of smiling, you don't have to smile. This is very hard for him because he's very sociable and wants not to be, a curmudgeon. So, but that's perfect because it's very specific.
Yeah, the next level in that would be and probably have a private conversation about, who and at what point were you feeling judged about the way your face looked, about not doing it right? Where's that power person dynamic come from? And if one's power person isn't there and they're under stress, then the power person dynamic will kick in and take over, and that would be the place to forgive, to let go of that dynamic in the mind, whatever it is. And so if it's some sort of self-judgment, it's become self-judgment because it was a dynamic that was externally applied, and he took it on. Most likely. Now, it could also be something that was genetically applied. We've got we've talked about before, there's the active receiving of a power person dynamic. Somebody who had more power over our lives than we did, wasn't functioning as love, gave us a direct message, or, and this would tend to point more to a genetic type of thing, or we made up, we took it on passively, an event happened, and I made up a message that didn't come out of my power person's mouth, but it might as well have. And when I start to let go of them, then I free myself of that energetic pattern in the mind, which functioning through, let's say it's related to speech, functioning through the speech center of the brain, all of that overwhelming energy in the speech center of the brain is somebody with a brain scan is going to say, oh, look, this brain is different from others. Yeah, it is. Because there's all that overwhelming energy and self-judgment and, I'm going to be, what's the consequence? Well, that might be another conversation. Well, let's say you go and you purposely refuse to smile the whole time. What's going to happen? Oh, people will judge me. People won't approve of me. I might get rejected. I might get hurt. And as he looks at all of those dynamics and starts to let them go, then he can get free of them. And maybe, with his new fascination with the church, give him the Aramaic interpretation, maybe dig that passage out on sufficient for the day are the evils thereof, and I don't know chapter and verse on it, but explain to him the meaning of the word evil in Aramaic and what Jesus was talking about in this case. It's like, don't overwhelm yourself with these things, son. And here's how you refrain from overwhelming yourself. You cancel the goals that are driving you to this compulsion and free yourself of it. In that single passage, if someone really understands that single passage out of Yeshua's mouth, that's the end of OCD. For somebody who will apply it, and it's probably going to take some serious support for somebody who's got such an energy compulsion that it drives them, it's going to take some external support to get to the point where you can.
Yeah.
But there's Yeshua knew how it worked, and there's the resolution of it.
Oh, thanks, Michael. That's great. So, well, I'll just
I
hang
think
in
that
here.
it's awesome that you're there with that kind of commitment with him, with Michael, and how, and I would put money on the table that says it was your reaching out repeatedly that gave Luke the lifeline to bypass the challenges he was having, and you're working with your other grandson. I think it's awesome.
Thanks. Speaking of Luke, he's reliving his family dynamic with his father. He has found a girlfriend who is love bombs him and then rags on him, mistreats him terribly, and he's very attached to her in a very unhealthy way. And he knows what he's doing. I've told you about this before, but he's about to graduate. Knock on wood. He's graduating this, I think it's Friday, from after 7 years. The alcoholism really got in the way there. 7 years. He's finally finished and wants to get a job, and he's basically doing well, but he's just not able at this point to become sober from this new addiction, which is the girl. And I don't talk to him much because he's so ashamed. He knows what he's doing and he just can't give it up. So,
remember to pass on. Well, actually, I'll send him a text and tell him about the graduation gift that's waiting for him when he comes to Bristol, Virginia to do a 3-day quantum stroke test.
That's wonderful. You've got his information?
I do.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Delighted. Honored. Well, anything else on your mind for today?
No, I'll just be listening. Thanks, Michael.
All right. Holding you in a blessing. Tell Michael we said hello and send our love, and surround him in light in his new digs.
I'll tell him. That's great.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Yep. Bye.
Well, Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody else in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
Yanka's with us in the chat room, but nobody has a question or a hand up. You all are getting close to the end of your book, too.
We are. We're up to chapter, I'm not even sure what are we on. I don't know. I don't keep track. 16, 17, something like that.
No, actually, you did chapter 22, July the 11th.
Oh, okay. We've only got 2 more chapters to do. We're going to have to get a worksheet in there somehow. How has your vacation gone, Inca? Your son's back home, I assume, and hope all is well. And then to shift back to the conversation we were having yesterday, to continue with that whole conversation about another view, another picture of looking at the work, and recognizing that, one of the ideas we finished with yesterday was recognizing that when I think or speak about something outside of me being the cause of what's moving inside of me, that's when I'm in denial. And actually, we have exactly the same definition in codependence work for what's a codependent relationship. That's a relationship with any person, place, circumstance, substance, or activity where I think that is causing this to move in me. So I can be codependent with anything or anybody. And when I take back my power, I have to start looking within, which might mean that I'm going to have to take on a whole new level of work by looking at what's going on in my own mind. My thesis, once again, and I'm sure that I'd be able to find 10,000 psychologists and 10,000 psychiatrists that would say to me, Michael Rice, you're nuts. And that's okay. But my thesis is we are not designed to have an unconscious mind. We are not designed to live and hold information within us that is inaccessible to us. We have artificially created this hidden compartment in our own minds. And that compartment is called the unconscious. It's created by living in denial. Once I create that compartment, by definition, I no longer have direct access to it. With no direct access, when something is resonated in it, when something's triggered in it, and that energy is strong enough that it formulates a construct in my mind called perception, and then I believe that that construct in my mind is actually caused from outside of me, I now become powerless over the content of my own mind because I've hidden from myself that very content. The whole objective, to me, probably one of the most brilliant pieces of information to ever come to the earth, came through a man named Yeshua 2,000 years ago, and he taught us how to open and clean out our own unconscious minds. He taught us that goals drive perception. And if I'm in some sort of pain or trauma, I can access the underlying dynamic of that pain or trauma by canceling the goal that's causing my mind to utilize that unresolved energy to build my perception. And when I cancel that goal, that driver, that construct in my mind collapses. And when it collapses in on itself and gives me access to the hidden part of my own mind. If I repeat, and repeat again, my denial, Bill's to blame, Harry's to blame, Mary's to blame, George is to blame, on and on goes the list, or even my own personality is to blame, then I'm strongly, powerfully energizing the content of my own unconscious mind. And at some point, that's going to rise up and take me over. It's going to control me. So, short of a punch in the nose, cancel that thought, as I said yesterday, my denial causes all of the unpleasant sensations I feel in my structure, and it intensifies pain. How do I tell if what I'm feeling is created by me or created by someone or something outside of me? There's a really easy test. If I'm feeling it, it's mine. Now I can live in denial, and the whole culture, this is like it's the universal standard in the culture. You made me. And whatever word you follow that with, angry, afraid, sad, terrified, that's a statement of denial. And for someone else to make you angry, to make you afraid, to make you sad is just so ludicrous, so ridiculous. And yet, virtually everybody in the culture believes that that's the reason when they're afraid, they're afraid. That's the reason when they're angry, they're angry. That's the reason because something out there happened. And it's all based in a lie. If I'm feeling the movement of impacted, unpleasant energies that I've hidden from myself through denial, I'm doing that to myself. And the way I hide them from myself is, again, we're back to how does the car work? If I don't know there's spark plugs and a spark plug goes bad and I hear it, misfiring, I'm not going to have a clue what that means. If I've hidden every pained energy from myself by blaming everybody else, and nobody told me that that's how denial works, nobody told me that's how we create an unconscious mind, nobody told me that by canceling the goal, I'd have access to my own unconscious mind and the opportunity to clean it up instead of drugging myself so that I don't feel what's there, instead of disabling my mind through the use of chemicals. And you look at, most everybody in the culture. We are the most drugged culture in history. You look at the amount of sugar that's consumed in this culture. You look at the amount of alcohol that's consumed in this culture. And those are all just physical forms of denial. I'm going to anesthetize myself against dealing with what's inside of me. To me, one of the most atrocious things that's happening today in this culture is that virtually culture-wide, it's becoming acceptable for people to drug themselves with THC and celebrate it and think it's wonderful that it's legal. Now, personally, I think that the whole war on drugs, if you look at where the war on drugs started, it started with a particular political guy who wanted people to go to war and kill people for him, just like kings do. And when they wouldn't, then he literally started a war on drugs because he could not force these kids on drugs to kill for him. But a whole society buys into this error that something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me, and then develops industries that support that lie by feeding me sugar, caffeine, nicotine. Pot is now on the list. It's like, why would you want to? Oh, I see. You're in so much pain, and your pain goes away when you smoke pot. Oh, okay, I got it. So now you're using a disabling chemical to force that which you refuse to deal with out of awareness. Well, that's one way to do it. But if you think about it, what do you suppose the cost of that is? What damage do you suppose it does to the instrument? There's a gentleman named Ammon, Daniel Ammon. He's a psychiatrist that I know up in California. He does brain scans, and he has a poster, and he shows the brain scans on a half a dozen different kinds of assaulted brains. When I've traveled and I've gone into treatment centers and jails, I used to carry that poster with me. And of course, from a distance, you can't tell what the poster says, but there are several pictures on it. And they're each pictures of brain scans. And there's a normal brain scan. So I'd go into, let's say, a recovery center with young teens, and I'd show them that picture from a distance. And I go, this is what a normal brain looks like. See how rounded and fluffy? This is a whole functioning brain. And here are a series of abnormal brains. Not knowing which assault had happened to any given image on the poster, virtually 100% of people, when I say, which brain, if this is the normal healthy one, which brain would you most want to avoid? and virtually everybody picks the same one. And it's not the one on alcohol, and it's not the one on cocaine. It's the one on pot. Why would you want to do that to yourself? And now we've got a whole society. You know, there's one particular guy in Congress, without getting political about it, or at least he was in Congress, pretty high level up, and he was anti. But, you know, he got in on the investment in the business, and now he's out there promoting legalizing pot all over the country and making a fortune from it. One of those guys, you know, with what they called family values, you take care of kids and such. And now he's one of the main promoters of legalizing pot throughout the country. We live in denial, then what the culture does, because everything that happens in a brain that's under the influence of denial is the brain shows false pictures that follow the denial process of the problem being everyone else. So when a whole society buys into this blatant error that it's everybody else, then it will counsel you to forgive. But you will notice that it will counsel you to forgive person after person after person after person after person after person, like letting somebody else off the hook is going to change the condition of your brain. Never forgive anyone for anything. Many people say, well, oh yes, that's right, I need to forgive myself. No, please never forgive yourself for anything. Pardon yourself, pardon them if you will, but then get back to what forgiveness actually means. It's a way that you collapse pained perception, whatever the official name of the disorder is, whether it's OCD or, you know, rage or whatever it is, understanding how that mind produces its pained perceptions. And you'll notice that, you know, unless you've got somebody who's just a generally a miserable person, you'll notice that they're pretty much happy with everybody when everybody's fulfilling all of their goals. They only go into upset, they only go into rage when this person in front of them is not fulfilling a goal they hold for them. How does that work? If I hold a goal for you to complete something for me, and you don't do it, you're probably going to trigger the power person dynamic. My power person was not functioning as love, and I took on pained energies, and whatever kinds of abuses my power person passed on to me, I will pass on to the person who's not fulfilling my goals. And I'll be living out that power person dynamic. So sooner or later, one has to realize, if you've been through a particular painful reality 87 different times with 42 different people, you're the only one that was there every time. Your pained energetic patterns are about you, and you will never be forgiven for those things because those things are energetic patterns that need to be forgiven you. So it's not about being forgiven or let off the hook for your errant energies. It's about reaching in and removing the errant energies themselves. So the Greek translation that comes totally and completely out of the denial process of forgiveness is about how you're going to let them off the hook. When somebody does that, they've engaged in the Greek act of pardoning and totally ignored forgiveness. And pardoning is a nice thing. It's a good thing. But if you've been taught to pardon in place of forgiveness, that's like, kind of analogy can I use? Being taught to pardon in place of forgiveness would be like being taught to check your windshield wiper fluid and call it filling the car with gas. Oh yeah, I filled the car up. You checked your windshield wiper fluid. And then you wonder why you got 20 miles down the road and the car ran out of gas. Well, I filled the car up with gas. No, you checked your windshield wiper fluid. You put windshield wiper fluid in it. That's about as dumb a fact when people tell you you're supposed to forgive somebody else for what's going on inside of you. And you call that forgiveness and you wonder why you're still in pain. Well, forgiveness doesn't work because I'm still in pain. Letting somebody off the hook for what's going on inside of you is not forgiveness. It's backward. It's inside out. And virtually everybody's talking about how they've forgiven them. So if one is taught to pardon in place of forgiveness, it leaves one with no way to remove the generational dynamics that until we actively forgive them, eat us alive, literally. Heart disease, cancer, every degenerative disease, divorce, poverty, trauma, all of those things happen as a result of the misunderstanding of forgiveness and the lack of forgiveness. So forgiveness facilitates restoration to our original state. And if you don't know what the original state of a human being is, just hold a newborn baby and tap into their essence. One who engages in true forgiveness over time shifts back to their human life love and a conscious creative process based in love, rather than filling the windshield wiper fluid and ending up 25 miles down the road out of gas and wondering what's wrong. I did what I was supposed to do. Pardon someone if you will, okay? You know, it happens. People do crazy things. I have, you have, we've all done crazy things. So we all deserve to be pardoned for those things. But if I call letting you off the hook for what you've done forgiveness, then I will never engage in actual forgiveness. So speaking about forgiving them is kind of like saying, well, I'm driving to Charlotte, North Carolina, and getting in the car and going to Birmingham. And then when questioned, proclaiming the false as true, the pretense that you drove to Charlotte. You can never forgive another. Forgiveness is about removing painful content from your own mind. Letting another off the hook or sending him your best wishes does not give you access to, nor remove the hidden generational energetic dynamics held within your own mind. So once again, apply forgiveness the only place it belongs, inside yourself. So this whole conversation, I mean, you see bumper stickers on cars all the time. I've been forgiven. You will never be forgiven for anything. You can't be forgiven for anything because forgiveness isn't about being let off the hook. If I want to put up a bumper sticker that would reflect the true idea I'm looking for is I have learned how to apply forgiveness to the pain inside myself to free me from that pain. So in Aramaic, as Yeshua taught it originally, the word forgive describes a tool with which you uncover and heal the dissociated parts of yourself, the root of all pain. People do when you talk to somebody and they're stewing about something that happened 3 days ago. What are they stewing about? What do they talk? When you say, well, what's going on? Who did they talk about? Did they talk about themselves, or do they talk about that person who did that terrible thing 3 days ago that they're still stewing about? Forgiveness is a tool with which you uncover and heal the dissociated parts of your own self. You recover your own unconscious mind and free yourself of the root of all pain. So Forgiveness is the removal or the eviction from your own unconscious, the past, that part of you with which you make up perceptual reality, the lie that what happened or that your brother's the problem in your life. Those who resonate the hurt inside of us are never the cause of our hurt. And notice, your hurt doesn't come up as long as everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, according to you. And I mean, this culture is so deeply embedded in blame. We've been taught to blame anyone, even the people we cherish the most. And, ultimately, any object of attention, brother or self, will do when one's in denial. So Yeshua had a specific how-to technology for forgiving, for accessing and removing disintegrative thoughts, energetic patterns that did not belong within your own mind. And here's where the brain structure comes in, because what forgiveness does is it decompresses, decodes, and removes the actual neuropeptide that distorts cellular function and distorts the cell itself. Yes, energetic patterns will cause an anomaly in the brain. But the anomaly in the brain is not the cause of the energy that's stored there. The energy that's stored there, the dissociated content that's stored there, is the cause of the cellular dysfunction. So the Greeks did not have a way to understand this. They turned forgiveness absolutely backward. They made it about letting others off the hook for what's going on inside of one's own heart, which is the sole source of one's own issues. Here's where the scriptures say, you must forgive from your heart the wrongs of your brother. It wasn't about forgiving your brother. It's whatever you hold that's energetically untoward, energetically offensive to your energy system, that energy needs to be removed. Elsewise, you will project it into your brain's image of someone else. And the driver for that process is your goals. So when in fear or hostility, how do you get back to love? By accessing and removing the root thoughts that cause fear and hostility. When properly understood and used, its activity accesses and removes the generational impact of hostility and fear. Angry minds, that is, minds in denial, have universally made forgiveness about letting others off the hook for their own internal conditions, and that's insane. Use forgiveness to see, access, and remove the internally generated disturbances, and that's the only thing you can feel is the disturbances that are inside of you, and be restored to your birthright. Now, if you come from a long line of deniers, which we all do, I've never met anybody who doesn't have that work to do, then reclaiming your birthright is going to be a job. Because you come from, I come from, we all do, come from generations who were experts at blaming others. Canadian outfit that studies war, and they came up with a number, and I'm remembering now, I believe it was in the last 6,000 years on planet Earth, and in war, we've murdered, I'm thinking it was around 6 billion people. That's what they calculated. Think about 6 billion people murdered. That's a lot of blame. So don't be surprised if you find you're an expert at blame or at denial and dissociating from the content of your own mind.
You have a hand?
Oh, great. Let's say hello.
Okay. And Yinka said in the chat room, those moments when life guides you to coming in to listen to Michael, I've been overloading myself with all the things I should have done while my son was away. There were nights I refused to come in until it was midnight from the garden, and I was completing a job, which still aren't complete. And now my son's back, and I'm going to be doing worksheets on letting go of completing the garden. So it's like the same thing that I was talking about. And she said they have 2 chapters left, and that they will also be discussing worksheets. And she's made a commitment to do 2 sheets a day until the next book club with you.
Cool.
And our hand up is Mr. Joe Bryson out in his field. 864.
Oh, hey, young man.
Hey, what's
Joe
going
Bryson,
on here?
a man who's always been outstanding in his field.
And
the field is where now in Charlotte, there, South Carolina?
I am, where am I now? Let's see. Let me take a look around. Yeah, Greenville.
Oh, where
Greenville,
are you?
South Carolina.
Greenville,
Huh?
that's it. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
So how are you, young
called
man?
to say, huh? How am I?
How are you?
Well, I get to call and be a guest on your radio show. So, I mean, how great is that? I think it's absolutely
what a privilege.
fabulous. It is a privilege. It is an absolute glorious opportunity, and I appreciate it. I really do. I'm good. I just wanted to say, hey, I sent in my feedback on the quantum still point and highly recommend that to any of your listeners and people practicing. If they can get one-on-one with you or Jeannie for that matter, then I think that is just, the intensity, the outcome and results of it are just, they're very nice. And I would say that's why I want to do it again, because it's just, it's certainly something between, I don't know what the right word is. It's funny because when I wrote you that, recommendation, and there's part of me that I had to write in there that I really don't care or necessarily want to know why I, experienced what I did. I experienced it, and it was the outcome was wonderful, and to this day I still, have memories of it and or physical, what's the right word, experiences that come up and, reminded. And I really do think there was a shift in my antenna, shall we say, in terms of reception as well as emitting energy outward and handling that and crossing into that belief system. So,
right.
Yeah.
What does that look like to you, Joe, as you
What's that?
Or get further away from the actual, the 3-day intensive? What does getting those shifts look like for you? How does that show up?
I would say the way it shows up is the recognition in my daily activities. For instance, if if an irritation occurs, then I seem to have improved my. I don't leave peace. I don't leave the peace. I may have an irritation occur with an interaction with someone else, and it's more of the way it occurs is that in my mind now. Not that it wasn't happening then, and I don't think I have experience with you spontaneous healings too. And in this case, it just is another step for me in terms of the irritations. That is a good example for me anyway. If someone claims something that I know is false, it's more of a patience. I think it shows up as patience, as trust, and a willingness to trust and extend and be patient. That's really important, because I think a lot of times for myself, I want to run or want to get something done, and that's one way it shows up, is that things take time. Yeah, and I know they do. I know they take time, and so now just another cog in the wheel, or another stone in the
step.
wall, or step. Yeah, exactly. Another step in the ladder as we ascend to where we came from, I think. And I just...
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what I think I'm hearing is you found that you're a step farther away from your reactive mind that kicks into automatic pilot, takes over, and sends you places you'd rather not go. Would that be another way to say it?
Yeah.
Nice.
I think, you know, between the sympathetic, parasympathetic, I can actually walk between and say, wait a minute, you know, and I may be falling into discomfort, or there it is. I've heard you say it so many times. Oh, the minute or when discomfort occurs, and or just like you were just saying, immediate blame or denial, then wait a minute. You've got tools. Use your tool. Breathe. You know, that's the other thing about what you do and the whole thing is certainly over that 3-day period for me. I don't know. It is. I still do it, and I think that's another big plus, is to recognize how much I hold my breath. I just and the other thing too is with my intimate. Oh yeah, and in my intimate relationship with Susan, I have recognized her holding her breath with no you know, I don't have a badge. I don't have a credentials to call her out and say, you're not breathing. It's not, you know, it's not, what I mean is that it's, once I recognize someone else not breathing, now I really know that a little bit more about the depth of my own remembering and my own condition as to when I stop breathing. So.
Well, so often you hear me say, you know, become the thinker apart from the thought, the feeler apart from the feelings, the actor apart from the actions, and that's part of what it takes to be able to do that and restore the breath and own what's moving inside rather than just shut it down and go into oblivion.
Yeah, and that's a good word, because that's where you're going. Just, it's oblivion, and then really, what kind of destination is that? It's just nothing. And the opposite is, you know, it is okay. Yeah, it's the opposite, but even after that, the notion. I think the other thing too, and I wrote it in my recommendation to you, is love. Is this aspect of something with no opposite, something that is a condition and or an experience of
living as a human being. Yay!
Yeah. Yeah. Yay! All right, gotta go.
That's it.
Thanks.
All right, you have a blessed one. Appreciate you.
Bye,
Lots
guys.
of love.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, holding a space that you will have the best year yet of your eternal life. It is an awesome gift to give the world. The world is in desperate need of it, and each of us has the power to deliver that. And each time you deliver it to yourself, you literally give it to the whole world.